everyone, welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all of the latest news from the world of movies, plus a little bit of insight into what it all means. Joining us, as always, is AMC Movie News Editor-in-Chief, John Campea.
Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, coming to you live from right here at the Stream.TV studios here in Hollywood, California, and we are so glad you decided to make us part of your day.
Also here, AMC Movie News Senior Editor, Amy Rose Eisenbach.
Hey, lovely to be back. And I finally saw Foxcatcher last night, and it is as good as I wanted it to be.
And also here, AMC Movie News Production Manager, Dennis Zen.
I'm super excited. We're going to be talking about the hit song Guns N' Roses Civil War. No.
Well, flashback.
Bing bong.
And we've got a full table today with writer-director John Schnepp.
Hey, nice to meet all the sweaties in New York Comic-Con. I'm back, and we're going to talk about Ken Burns' special documentary series, Civil...
Yeah, a groundbreaking documentary by Burns.
Something different.
Well, we've only got one topic today because it deserves most of our time. Last night, Variety reported that Robert Downey Jr. was, in fact, in final negotiations to join the upcoming Captain America 3 in a move that would ignite a movie version of the beloved Marvel Comics story arc, Civil War. At the heart of the Civil War storyline is the Government Superhero Registration Act, which forces anyone with superhuman abilities to reveal their identities to the U.S. government and agree to act as police force for the authorities. Iron Man sides with the government, while Captain America believes the new law is a threat to civil liberties. It should be noted that no one from Marvel or Robert Downey Jr.'s camp have confirmed this report yet at this time. John, if this is true, what is your reaction to this story?
Okay, well, I mean, that's the key phrase here, if this is true. Now, for the record, I believe this report is coming from Variety magazine. I spoke with one Marvel rep who would neither confirm or deny anything about the story to me, but did say the following to me. Well, you know, it came out of Variety, and they don't usually put out a bunch of bull.
Oh.
So, like, that's all so they neither confirmed or denied anything. But, I mean, Variety is a reputable source. I trust them. But it should be emphasized that until Marvel or Robert Downey Jr.'s camp comes out and says it, and Variety noted this, that nobody from Marvel has confirmed this, nobody from Robert Downey Jr.'s camp has confirmed this. However, out of, you know, outlets that you should give the benefit of the doubt to, Variety is one of them, so I believe a confirmation is coming. Let's just remember, though, that it's not yet 100% confirmed. That being said, do I think this is significant? I was telling Dennis before we started the show, I believe that aside from Ben Affleck being cast as Batman, and obviously, number one, Disney buying Star Wars and announcing new Star Wars Episode 7, 8, 9, this is the biggest piece of movie news we've had, I think, in the last 3 years. I think this is incredibly significant because not only are we talking about the potential storyline for Captain America 3, we are talking about possibly the entire story arc direction for all of Marvel Phase 3. I mean, this could be an all-encompassing thing. Once again, nobody said that's the case. Civil War may be a one-shot movie. Civil War may be a 5-movie span. Avengers 3, which we have all been assuming was going to be when they finally have Thanos versus everybody, Avengers 3 may now, once again, keep this in mind, we're all speculating here, but now Avengers 3 could just be the culmination of Civil War. And then Thanos is actually not coming till Avengers 4. I mean, there's so many, this opens up a lot of questions that we need to talk about. One thing I want to mention before we start the roundtable discussion here is that I do find it interesting they're talking Civil War. For a long time, I really didn't think Marvel would go in the direction of Civil War, primarily because they don't have all the necessary characters they really need for it. And if they did do a Civil War, it really wouldn't be a lot like the Civil War we got in the comic books. But then again, Winter Soldier wasn't a lot like the Winter Soldier we got in the comic books either, so they can take a departure. But my one big question that came up about this was, at the heart of Civil War is this Superhero Registration Act, right? Where superheroes have to reveal their secret identities. Captain America believes this is a threat against civil liberties, blah, 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 blah. In this Marvel Cinematic Universe, everybody knows who everybody is already. I mean, Black Widow at the end of Captain America 2 is sitting in front of Congress. Iron Man already outed himself. Everybody knows Captain America is Steve Rogers. I mean, everybody knows who, Hawkeye is. I mean, right. There is no secret identities here to be protected yet. So they'll have to obviously go in a different direction at that point. But this is significant. Anyway, Schnepp, you just got back from New York. Your first reaction when you read all this whole report stuff coming out of Variety?
Lots of cosplay. There was so much cosplay at New York Comic Con. It was awesome. You guys rule. But yeah, my first reaction is actually to follow up what you were talking about. It's less about their identities and more about now you register and you work for us.
Right.
That's what I think the turnabout is. And Captain
Probably
America
right.
is like, yo, I'm not working for S.H.I.E.L.D. Look what happened. You guys were all working for Hydra, and you didn't even know that, and you made me work for Hydra. I don't want to have any part of this. I think Iron Man, Tony Stark, being a big part of probably taking over and restructuring S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever, that's my guess, is like, that's where it's going to come to, separating, or come to blows, so to speak. I can't be more excited about this news. This is fantastic news. I was really excited when we just heard about Robert Downey Jr. saying, I'm probably doing Iron Man 4. I was like, yes! It's like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. It's like, look, he could be Tony Stark till he's like 68. He's like, I want an old Iron Man as long as it's Robert Downey Jr. because he's awesome. So to me, it's just really great to keep that continuity. It's perfect for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I like that they're weaving these stories together so that, when I'm an old man with crutches, I could have like 48 Marvel movies that all tie together, and it's not like, yeah, this is the strange Roger Corman one that nobody watched, or this. Everything is tied together, and everything makes sense, and it's what Marvel made famous is like interconnecting storylines, and they all live in the same universe. And Spider-Man can swing in to Captain America 3 possibly, and it wouldn't be weird if they get the rights back and stuff like that. I mean, the cinematic universe that they've established is great, and that's why Iron Man being in Captain America, and whether it's called Fallen Sun, and then they saved Civil War for Avengers 3, that's another thing. Yeah, it just blew the lid off. We were all like, yeah, Thanos obviously is going to be Avengers 3. Maybe not. That's, it's great news. I'm really ecstatic about it.
Dennis?
Oh, I'm super excited for the storyline as well. The one thing I noticed in that article, though, is they talked about how at first Robert Downey Jr. had a smaller role. He wanted a bigger role and more money, obviously. And then the Marvel Entertainment CEO, I think his name's Ike Perlmutter or something like that. He's like,
Perlmutter.
He was upset about that, and he wanted him written out. And I guess Kevin Feige came back and they negotiated. I mean, it's still not confirmed, but I think Iron Man is a big deal in this storyline because he's the guy who goes up against Captain America. And, people talk about, oh, maybe they could write him out and put in another character, but another character wouldn't hold the weight that Iron Man would, a Tony Stark would, because, especially even just in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because we've been with him since the beginning, and we've seen him in not only just Iron Man the character, but Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man. Because imagine if, let's say, they recasted Iron Man, and he goes up against Chris Evans in Captain America 3 or further movies. You're not going to get the same emotional impact from that seeing a different actor play that, because you've seen them before. They have tension in the first Avengers. They're going to have more in Avengers 2. If we don't see Robert Downey Jr. in it, it's just not going to hold as much weight.
See, I don't agree with you on that point, but I do agree with you that you raise a great point about how you can't have Hawkeye fill the Iron Man role as being on the government side. You can't have Bruce Banner fill that role. You can't have Thor fill that role. Right. You can't have, Black Widow fill that role. I think Iron Man is the only guy that it can be on that. Anyway, Amy Rose, you heard all this kind of stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, it's been funny watching Robert Downey Jr. talk about Iron Man because we're like, oh yeah, 4's happening. No, it's not. Maybe it's something else. And I mean, he just has so much power with Disney and Marvel because everyone loves him. We always talk about who would be, the next Iron Man. We can't even come up with a list of names. It's like he is just, synonymous with that character. And I feel like this kind of project would get him so excited to keep playing this character because he would be kind of positioned as the villain for all intents and purposes up against Cap, which would be so exciting. I think Captain America 3 is the perfect launchpad for this because we saw, S.H.I.E.L.D. as we know it kind of abolished, and we saw Maria Hill kind of stepping up, and just the story arc is in motion. So I just think it's perfect. I love what the Russo brothers did. I'm so excited then to launch this with that because I love their direction and I love the vibe that they set. So I just feel like this is a no-brainer, but it also shows how little we know about Marvel's plan because we saw that whole, remember the wish list of the fan that made the graphics of the slate with all the different
It said Avengers Civil War, didn't it? One of them said Civil War.
It said that, and we're like, that'd be great, that'd be fun, but we didn't predict it would happen this soon. So I just think, again, Marvel is we are eating out of the palm of their hands. I have so much trust and faith in what they're doing, and this would be the ultimate showdown that we all want to see. So I'm really excited.
Well, let's look at it from a slightly more, let's get into some speculation here. Let's look at it from a slightly different point of view about what the repercussions of a story like this could be. Now, we've always said that, you know, Spider-Man is not joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's simply not happening. The only thing that could possibly make that even remotely possible is if Sony goes under. Well, Sony ain't doing so hot. And we're not talking about the Sony movie division. We're talking about even the parent company itself is hemorrhaging money. They are in trouble. And ironically, one of their only arms that's actually making them money is actually their movie division. But still, you have to now take that in consideration that, look, I still don't believe that Spider-Man is coming into the cinematic universe. I don't. But I believe the possibility of that happening is greater today than it was yesterday. And there is that, you know, a lot of sites have been running that one iconic image from that one cover of Civil War of Iron Man on one side and Captain America on the other, both tugging on Spider-Man's arm. Because we know Spider-Man plays a significant role in Civil War. How cool would it be? Now, whether I believe it's going to happen or not, and let's put that on the table. We are strictly speculating here, okay? But how cool would it be where Spider-Man, I've never cared about Spider-Man being in the cinematic universe. Never cared. But how cool would it be to have Spider-Man in a Civil War movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with these two guys
cool.
fighting? Like how could you envision that coming together?
It would make me forget about the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I would put that aside and be like, we'll talk about that maybe in a few years. I won't talk about it anymore. If that was to happen, how it could happen is they would bring in Oscorp, maybe working with Stark, and somehow bring in that technology aspect. Maybe bring in Spider-Man, some kind of mutation with him having to wear that outfit. You know, something that falls into that category, or maybe he doesn't want to reveal his identity. You know, so Iron Man or Tony Stark.
Like take a big departure there.
Yeah, there's
have
a lot
team
of
up with Captain America instead.
Yeah, it could go any one of those areas, but I mean, I like the idea of Spider-Man joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know. I mean, I guess the Spider-Man 3 is not coming out till 2018, so they have plenty of time. This is coming out 2016. So they like pushed off Spider-Man 3 quite a ways away that they could do a lot of different things. They could change up a lot of stuff and fix a lot of
spin-off
problems.
possibilities when Spider-Man's in that universe would just be so incredible. I mean, they literally could have their slate mapped out for like another decade with the possibilities, and I feel like that'd be a wasted opportunity, especially for Sony. That, you know, a lot of people, we always get slammed on because we're not fans of Spider-Man 2, you know, and we know a lot of you liked it. I'm glad you did, but I mean,
I liked it. I acknowledge its problems, but I liked it.
Yeah. But I just feel like it would be, especially since Sony needs that just resurgence, both in respect in terms of that property, and because it's always going to be considered, you know, the lesser of the Raimi films, at least in my opinion. I feel like that's just, as a trilogy, those films were just so much stronger, even though I liked Spider-Man, the first one from Mark Webb. So I just feel like it would just be beneficial to everyone to just add him to this universe on both sides of the respect and of possibilities. For a fan, it'd be so exciting.
All right, well, let me ask you guys this, and Dennis, I want to start with you. Is there, once again, completely speculating here, but is there a reality that exists that Spider-Man could come over into the Marvel Cinematic Universe where Sony doesn't have to abandon Spider-Man? Like, if for Spider-Man to show up in the MCU at this point, even with all the turmoil at Sony and all that kind of stuff, doesn't that pretty much negate the possibility? Like, wouldn't that mean they're going to have to kill these spin-off films and kill Spider-Man 3? Will Marvel allow another company to have control over one of the characters that is in their cinematic universe? Or are there opportunities for that to happen? What do you think?
I think there's opportunities. I think because Sony's in a position where they're a little more desperate and maybe they want maybe an influx of cash, plus maybe what Amy Rose is talking about, getting more respect for the character after Amazing Spider-Man 2 kind of had mixed reviews. But I think Spider-Man's a pivotal role in this storyline. You talk about that picture of Captain America and Iron Man pulling him, and he's in the middle. I mean, he's supposed to take the place of us, the viewer, the audience, or the comic book reader in that storyline, because he's a character who, one, he does have that secret identity thing, which the Marvel Universe doesn't really have going on, and two, in the comic book storyline, he goes both sides. He goes on Iron Man's side, he goes on Captain America's side, so I think he's like a fill-in for us, the viewer, and if they take that away, who's that going to be? And I think Sony, I heard that Sony and Marvel have a better working relationship than Marvel and Fox. And so
they're more friendly.
Maybe they'll loan them out for a rental fee.
I'll say I I don't think it'll work that way. Like, Sony already has the little Marvel page thing at the beginning. It's already branded as a Marvel character. There's cartoons.
But that's part of the license. Fox does that as well. The X-Men films do that as well.
I'm just saying, I know it's part of the license, but I'm just saying it's already, when you go see a Marvel movie, it's a lot of people can be like me, I'm like, hey, I get 5 Marvel movies a year. I'm happy. I don't care really that it's one company. I just care when the movie's good or bad. You know, I just want the movies to be good.
Yeah.
I'm happy that Disney, Marvel own a bulk of 85% of all the characters. That way, I get my full Marvel experience that I enjoy from when I read the comics, which is a universe together.
Shared universe.
So cinematic shared universe is great, and I never thought in a million years when I was a little kid reading these comics that I, as an adult, would be able to experience something this awesome. Captain America and Iron Man going toe to toe in a movie after already having multiple sequels and an Avengers movie. This is truly the age of miracles. Not that. We're in it.
Aww.
We're experiencing it. Got Star Wars happening. It's just really a great time to be a movie fan. For me, I'm just like, I'm ecstatic. Reading that was like, I cannot believe they're making this happen. They're moving worlds together. So to make the point, I think they will be able to bridge that gap with Spider-Man, not just because Sony is having a lot of problems financially, but that's a big problem. One of the big reasons. Also that The Amazing Spider-Man 2 didn't do too well critically or financially as much as they wanted it to make. So that also helps. But I think it's kind of just a smart move on Sony's part. Even if they were making a ton of money, I know they're trying to spin out a million different franchises just from the Spider-Man universe, but to reconnect with the actual shared universe, I think it wouldn't just be a loan out, it'll be like we're tethered now. So they'll create some kind of structure where it's like, you could see Captain America in Spider-Man 3. You could start to see those things happen, I think. Because it would just only help. It's a real smart move.
Especially because they did create space and push Spider-Man 3 back so far, not just a year or two, a significant chunk of time.
Yeah.
So maybe there is something going on, that we don't know about. But I think it would be really intelligent from both sides because Spider-Man's such a beloved character, and they could really get him back on track, whether or not it'd be with Garfield or they reboot it, whatever, time will tell. But I feel like
they would have to reboot it.
I would think they would.
If they brought him over in the CMU, they'd have to completely
Unless
reboot it.
the contract and they fight to keep him in because he loves the character so much. There's different things. I think they should, but I don't know. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen that would decide that one. But I feel like it would be really intelligent to bring him in and kind of just set the framework for Spider-Man moving forward because, he would be part of the Avengers and the battle and all this and then come back to his, world with Aunt May and everyone and just to decide how that affected his life and his home front and everything there. And I feel like it could just, again, serve as the launch pad to just make his storyline richer as well with all the crazy villains they're trying to throw in that mix. So I just feel like the possibilities are endless and it would be really smart for them to combine forces and not just borrow him, but actually try to, make the stories just a little more cohesive together.
One of the things, though, I don't think Spider-Man is nearly in the trouble with Sony. Even with the opportunity of something like a Civil War here, which is really what this is all about with Civil War. Spider-Man, a lot of people seem to think Spider-Man is in trouble, and it's really not. It made Sony a lot of money. It's one of the few things, even The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Here's my big question, though. If Marvel really thought Sony was in trouble, or that Spider-Man was in trouble, why make a deal with Sony now? Why not just let the Sony Spider-Man die and then reclaim the license when the license expires? Why, if you were Marvel, would you agree to give tons of money to Sony to keep them alive and keep them going and hanging on to Spider-Man? And if you were Sony, are you not saying, okay, we'll make Spider-Man movies moving forward, but we're going to take all of our orders from Kevin Feige on what we're going to do? Because if they're going to have them share universe, they have to have one boss. They have to have one person calling the shots.
I would love that.
So, I mean, it creates a lot of interesting dynamics, a lot of interesting possibilities.
It could be an out contract where they're like, we get this much, this much, this much, this much, and then it's all yours. It could just be one of those things where we'll still make Spider-Man 3 and 4 and Sinister 6 and whatever, Venom, but then you get the rights. It could be like if Disney Marvel helps Sony Spider-Man in this weird way, it could be a way for them to get their character back. Who knows? I mean, that would make the most sense.
And maybe they don't want to wait. Your whole question of, why they would help the studio in trouble.
No, they seem pretty patient. Marvel seems pretty patient
They don't
to
need
me.
Spider-Man.
They don't need him, but it would be great.
Yeah.
They don't
versus
need him, but
Superman
I
is,
feel
you know.
like he for this storyline, he's a pivotal role, and
Yeah.
replacing him with a different superhero is going to have a different impact on it.
Or remember,
Definitely.
they might not even have that. Remember, they departed so much
Oh,
from Winter Soldier and everything. Maybe there's not even a Spider-Man role here. But I want to bring us back to the two key characters here, talking about Tony and Captain Rogers. But before I get to that question, I want to remind you guys, if you're watching us live right now, I know this is a huge issue. You guys probably have some thoughts about this thing. You guys probably have some comments or some questions. Tweet them into us live right now. Tweet to @AMC Movie News. We're going to leave a few minutes to take your comments and questions that Ashley will pick out. So if you got some thoughts on this whole Civil War thing, start sending them in. I want to ask this question that seemed pretty obvious, and this is a question that came up pretty heavy when they announced Batman versus Superman. Now, does Captain America 3, if this is all true, Tony Stark comes in, Robert Downey Jr. signs for $40 million, which is also not confirmed, but if that's the case, $40 million has a big significant role. Is this movie even Captain America 3 anymore? Or is this, I mean, does it become Captain America 3 in name only, or does the movie truly focus on Captain Rogers, on Captain America, as being the hero of the story? And does, as you alluded to a little bit earlier, does Tony Stark take on a bit of a villain role?
Yeah.
Even if it's, not intentional, does he take on the bad guy role in here to keep it? How can they keep this Captain America 3 if Tony Stark is in there?
Well,
What do
when
you
they
guys think?
added Scarlet, I thought that, oh God, they don't think Cap can stand on his own, but their dynamic is great, and it still felt like a Captain America movie.
He was still really the predominant character
He
out of the
was,
two.
but she was still shared a lot of screen time with him, and I never felt like it detracted. Now, Robert Downey Jr. is a little different in the mix, but I don't feel like they would make him a dominant part of the storyline. I think they would start, taking shape and kind of position him as the villain, have a lot of dialogue from Steve Rogers and Camp, but I don't feel like he would predominantly take that. Otherwise, it becomes another Iron Man movie, and Cap was so successful for Marvel and so loved that I don't think they need that to raise it, because, look at that whole showdown, Marvel won again. So I don't think that they need it. It's just the perfect launchpad to start that story. So I don't think he'll take up the whole line.
What do you guys think?
I think they're going to keep it as Captain America
Yeah.
movie, only because I don't think they're really going to have the whole showdown and all of Civil War in Captain America 3. I think it's going to be the start of it, and they're going to plant the seeds, and they're going to set up the whole Tony Stark versus Captain America thing, but they're not going to fight. I don't think they're going to fight. I don't think there's all that stuff that we've seen in the Civil War comic book is going to happen in just that one movie. I think just the seeds are happening. If they actually do butt heads and they're going to fight like a Batman v Superman, then it becomes that type of situation where it really is Iron Man versus Captain America.
Sure.
I see it could come to a showdown. One of my favorite parts of this whole Civil War thing is that standoff in the rain with handing the shield over. A lot of different things. In the comic books, they're so cinematic that I'd love to see them done correctly. But yeah, I don't necessarily think that Tony Stark will be the villain. I think due to repercussions from perhaps the Ultron Avengers storyline, he's going to have hey, I've got to maybe take more control over my life or do something different, so to speak. It's like I think they're just going to be opposed just from their standpoint. Doesn't make just because I believe something, you believe something, doesn't make you the villain. It's just like I think we should do this. Well, I think you're wrong. I think
Well, that's what's great about the story.
Yeah.
Is that it's not like, oh, this guy is right or this guy is
Yeah.
right, and that's kind of why I thought a character like a Spider-Man is great, because he's conflicted on both sides.
This can also open up Iron Man 4 Demon in a Bottle. This could be one of those things after Ultron could be the Tony Stark character could take a couple of stumbles, and then we could see that become Iron Man 4. I'm still hoping for an Iron Man standalone, and I see this more as Iron Man just being, or Tony Stark more so being in the movie, and it's still going to be Steve Rogers' story. That Cap has got so much going for him in his storyline, so.
I feel
that's
like
how
their
I'd see
moral
it.
codes, though, are what makes him kind of looked at as a villain, is just because Cap is, Star Stripes, blue, like soldier, always just doing everything right by the book, Boy Scout. And then you have Tony Stark, who kind of does what he wants. He's this playboy, philanthropist. Sure, he does some great things as well, but he takes liberties where he needs to. So it's like, it's easier to, go under this
Dark
epitome.
side.
Yeah, exactly. Even though not a villain per se, but I do feel like in the arc that they would position him to be a little more of the opposition.
So maybe it's safer to say the antagonist more than the villain.
Exactly. Antagonist.
But the funny thing is, in the storyline, it's flipped though. That Tony Stark becomes agent of the government, and it's Captain America that goes rogue.
Goes disillusioned with the government,
Yeah.
which actually even makes him a little bit more heroic in many ways. All right, folks, well, listen, we could talk about this for the next several hours, but we do want to hear what you guys have to say. We want you to chime in. Tweet to us right now at AMC Movie News. Ashley's been over there collecting some tweets. So, Ashley, what have you picked out?
Adrian M. Soto writes, does Batman vs. Superman have competition now with Robert Downey Jr. reportedly to be in Captain America 3? Love the show. Thanks.
Yeah. They aren't going head to head anyway. I mean, they've moved them months apart from each other, or a year apart from each other. So it's, if you're asking competition as in which movie in theoretical terms is going to make more money, sure, Captain America 3 is now going to give Batman vs. Superman a run for its money, but they're not going to be against each other because they're not opening anywhere near each other.
Wait a second, it's only a couple weeks, right? Batman v Superman, and then it opens in March. And then
Captain America is like
opens in
yeah,
May.
sorry,
So it's only 2 months.
Yeah, a couple months.
Yeah.
Which is plenty. 8 weeks,
Yeah.
I almost feel like Marvel's trying to one-up DC. It's like, oh, you have your two biggest characters, Batman versus Superman. We're gonna have our whole universe fight each other. So.
But you know what? I think all this stuff, I really honestly think it's all been planned out. I mean, I think they were like, look, we're gonna do this. Joss Whedon wrote this script, and like the way, everything happens with Ultron and the Avengers segues into all these other movies. They've had their fate. They have to plan all this stuff out. So I'm sure this has been in the works. It's just like, we'll come to that when we get to that, with negotiations with Robert Downey Jr. and such. But like New York Comic Con, they announced Secret Wars. Like they're rebooting Civil War as a comic book.
As a comic book,
in 2015, and they're also rebooting Secret Wars. So to me, that's like, Marvel Comics are like, the step up in front of the Marvel movies, so what they're trying to promote. And I could easily see Avengers 4 being Avengers Secret Wars. That would be crazy.
So what about the Infinite Gauntlet storyline?
That would happen in Secret Wars. Thanos, you have to go to another planet. It just opens the cosmic universe. You could have the Guardians in there. It just makes more sense. Why would they all come to Earth? Just make.
I even think with the reboots, they're not going to stick too closely to, even with the rebooted comic books, I don't think they're going to follow them too awfully closely. But it does raise an interesting question, though, about the directions they're going to go and how they're going to handle this. And you mentioned a really interesting point, because I think you're completely right when you said that they've had this planned out. I think they've had it planned out loosely with some flexibility. For instance, I don't think they knew they were going to bring Robert Downey Jr. back. So if all this report is true, I'm willing to bet this. I have nothing to back this up with, okay? Nothing.
Cinema Blend. Report this.
But
100% confirmed.
I'm willing to. I'm almost willing to put money on that. Had they not locked back down Robert Downey Jr., or they decided they didn't want to pay him for what he's worth, because apparently opening his own movie to only $13 million means he's not worth as much as a lot of people thought. But if they decided he wasn't worth the money, or he didn't want to come back, I'm willing to put money down that they had planned then to go after Spider-Man, to get him in the cinematic universe, to have him on the other side of this coin. I'm almost willing to bet, because you need that big, like Dennis was pointing out, you need that big marquee name if you're going to do this. Hulk right now isn't it.
Yeah.
Thor
won't work.
Thor won't work for a lot of different reasons, but Spider-Man could. So I bet he was Plan B.
I don't think WB really has anything to worry about, though, because the framework
agree.
for Marvel has already been set. And we've already seen these Avengers on screen together. So it's nothing new, even though the storyline is. So I'm excited for Cap 3, especially with Downey joining. But we've not seen the battle between Batman and Superman. So I just feel like they don't really have anything to compete with at the moment, especially moving out of the month. So they're not going head to head. I'm really excited for Cap 3, but I'm even more excited to see the showdown and to see what Affleck does and all of that. So yeah, I don't think WB is nervous about this news at all. But this just brings in, monetary figures even more because of the star power that Robert Downey Jr. has. So.
Which apparently didn't translate to the judge. All right, so let's try to fly through. We're almost out of time, but I do want to get to as many of your guys' stuff as we can. So we're going to fly through a bunch here. So let's go through a few more here, Ashley, rapid fire.
All right, Andrew writes, do you think it's too early for Civil War?
No. We're what, 7 or 8 films in the Marvel Cinematic
Yeah.
Universe? So do you guys feel differently? I don't think it's too soon.
I don't feel it's too early to plant the seeds, but like I was talking about the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, I'd like to see that eventually come to fruition.
I think it will,
They've been
yeah.
planting near that for a long time.
They got a lot of gems. I haven't
Lot
even
of
seen the
gems.
Gauntlet, you know. It's
Yeah, I
like-
don't need to see a movie collecting a gem every single movie.
All right, what's next?
Ann Curtis writes, if they do get Spider-Man in the Civil War movie, will they replace Andrew Garfield?
Yep, I don't see any other way because logically it makes no sense. It has to be a new Spider-Man because, New York, Spider-Man's been flipping around New York. How come there's no mention of this giant alien invasion that happened while he was Spider-Man? Yeah, I think they would definitely have to reboot him. Do you guys
I
see
think
any
it
other
would
ways?
make the most sense to reboot him, but I do think something could be done if otherwise. But I do think a fresh take on the character, if they're continuing the storyline and, taking continuity into consideration, I think it would make the most sense.
I think they could keep him. I think they could easily write in like remember that? Yeah, I was overseas in Europe studying. I don't know. They'll figure something out. In fact, they could just not ever mention Amazing Spider-Man 2, and it'd be awesome. So they could just be like, "Hey, Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man, awesome."
I can see them keeping him if Andrew Garfield plans on doing more Spider-Man movies
yeah.
beyond just 3.
All right, what's next?
Isaac P. writes, if Captain America 3 is the Civil War plotline, what's next for the MCU universe? Where does Thanos fall into this?
Well, Thanos probably, they stretch out the Thanos thing even more and have him just kind of popping up and really make his build up as the big ultimate villain a really slow burn. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for the Thanos storyline.
Yeah.
You guys see it any differently?
Yeah, I want to see Thanos more developed. I mean, he was only in like one micro scene in Guardians of the Galaxy. We know he'll probably
Two
show
micro
up.
scenes.
2
And
micro
they were
scenes.
really good micro
They were
scenes.
awesome, but I want more. So I'm just saying, like, we got another Guardians coming up. I'm sure he'll be in that. Avengers Secret Wars, I'm calling it. So I'm just excited to see all this happening, and I'm sure Thanos will be Avengers 3. I think you're right. Probably Avengers, Civil War, Captain America, Fallen Son. That could probably be the way to go. Or just call this Civil War and just, like, hit it,
All right, what's next?
Andy Girardo writes, what other characters do you wish to appear in the possible Civil War film?
Considering I don't even know what direction they're going in or what tone it's going to have, it's impossible for me to say this character should be there when maybe the plan they have for the story really means
Yeah.
that character shouldn't be there. So I can't answer that at all.
I think because of what the story is, they're going to fill it with as many characters as possible
sure.
because they want to be able to test, like, did this character get a good reception? They're going to put Black Panther, they're going to put Doctor Strange,
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man,
Chuck the Inhumans in there, get a, like, Black Bolt or Medusa little cameo.
New Warriors, like everyone. I think they're going to fill as many characters as possible. Daredevil, everyone.
Yeah,
Punisher.
Some of the Netflix TV cinematic side kids. thrown in
Everyone.
there,
I don't think there'll be any Netflix crossover.
I think they will be.
All right, what's next?
Max writes, how do you go from Civil War then go to Infinity Gauntlet? You have to build that slowly and carefully, right?
Well, I think they already have started building
They
it
have
slowly and carefully. And I think what they've been brilliant in doing is having the Infinity Gauntlet story like a very slow burn running underneath the plots of the other movies. It's there, and they just continue to do that. So I think they've been handling it really well.
I think they've been handling it really well, and it's been a slow burn, and some in the after credits and all of this, and I feel like that could be really pushed out as well. It can continue to be a slow burn. They don't just have to tie it all up and make that the main storyline.
Yeah, I think we have gotten a gem every movie, to be honest with you. We really have to. It's like we got 4 gems now. They only got to do 2 more. And we got a gauntlet. So
My biggest concern of the delay of the Infinity Gauntlet storyline is I want to see the original Avengers in the first movie fight Thanos.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want a broken up team of like a bunch of B-list and C-list characters. They can be in it, that's fine. But you have to have that core group of the first Avengers fighting them.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's
that
what
can
I wanna
happen
see.
though. That really
It could
I know.
happen.
Yeah.
Even if
happen.
they throw Thor back and Hulk's gone and this and that, we don't know what's going to happen. But they could always come back
Yeah,
for
exactly.
Avengers 6.
As
and
long as
could
that
be-
happens,
Yeah.
I'm cool with it.
All right, let's take one more.
Fabio V writes, do you think we could possibly see Loki in Captain America 3?
I believe we're going to see Loki again. I don't know that Captain America 3
It's the right
I'm not
place.
sure why he would be there. He's on Asgard. He's quite happy being on Asgard right now. Thor's not in it that we know of. So I mean, I know.
Methinks
if I had
that
to
was a
put
Loki fan who wrote
Yeah,
that clip.
if I had to put money on it, I would say no.
I'm
but-
also a Loki fan, but it just doesn't feel like it's the right place.
Doesn't make sense, yeah, because that's Captain America's become this more spy thriller type thing. I wouldn't.
Tonally,
fit.
it's
Yeah.
like different worlds.
Save him.
Yeah.
All right, folks, so that'll do it for us for this special installment, this one-topic installment of today's AMC Movie Talk. Thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget, lots of great films playing at AMC Theaters right now. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for all your theater, showtime, and of course your movie ticket information. If you want an audio-only version of this episode, look in the description of this video, and you'll find a link to all of our podcast feeds. And listen, don't forget, click the thumbs up button, subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel, and tell everybody you know to do the same. I want to thank, first of all, the people sitting at the table with me. First, sitting to my left, our senior editor of movie news here, Miss Amy Rose Eisenbach. Amy Rose, where can people find you online?
At Amy Rosie on Twitter and Instagram. And don't forget to tune in to AMCI Indie Spotlight tomorrow.
And of course, sitting to my right, he is our production manager here, Mr. Dennis Zen. Dennis, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at ThinkHero or on Instagram, dennis.tzeng. Thanks.
And making his